We've given the French £800 million to stop the boats, and yes, you can see videos of them slashing boats on beaches, and they advertise these quite heavily, especially when President Macron visits the United Kingdom. The truth is, of course, the number of boats coming goes up and up and up, and even if 43% have been stopped this year, it doesn't make any difference because the same people come back the very next day. But there'd been a change in French practice. They'd said from now they would intercept boats, not just on the beach, but up to 300 metres out at sea. But the government that negotiated that, well, France's Bayrou, the Prime Minister, has a major problem. There's a vote of confidence in the government on the 8th of September. Does it mean that any deal that has been done, for what good it's done, which I would suggest isn't actually that much really, but would it mean that actually that would fall, that would end? Why has France got this problem? Well, it's down to economics. It's down very much to their debt-GDP ratio. Not that we in this country can be too complacent, but theirs is the worst now in the whole of Europe, behind only Italy and Greece. So, is this something of a constitutional crisis in France? I'm joined down the line by Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, Daily Telegraph columnist. Good evening. Now, got to explain just very quickly to a British audience, the French have a president, they have a prime minister, they have the equivalent of a parliament with the Assemblée Nationale, and actually it's been in crisis now, hasn't it, for some time?
It's been in crisis ever since Emmanuel Macron called a snap legislative election a little over a year ago and managed to find himself without a majority. Nobody has a majority in the House. The National Rally is on the right. The sort of uneasy coalition of hard left and semi-hard left on the left, and a kind of centrist a sort of middle that is not very happy. We are facing a new budget, as every year, which François Bayrou, the current Prime Minister, was supposed to present. It's a budget that says we are in a dire situation and everybody's got to make efforts and we have to have cuts. And he has said that he would put his government to a confidence vote at the beginning of September. I think it's the 8th of September, and it is almost certain that he will lose the vote of confidence, and therefore the whole rigmarole starts again. The president can name a new prime minister, the president can call another snap election, and there isn't much more of a majority in France in parliament than there was a year ago.
And is there talk in France of perhaps French debt being at such a level, rising long-term bond yields in France too? Is there talk that maybe the IMF may need to come to the rescue?
That has been mentioned by a minister. In some ways, the French debt is so huge that it's something like 4 times or 6 times rather the debt of Argentina, which got President Milei to sort of slash things with an electric saw. But that's not the way things work here. There's always been a kind of impunity in France, the idea being this is a large country, it's a huge economy, it's too big to fail, just as lots of banks were bailed out at various times in history because they were too big to fail. But it is a real problem, and it's very difficult to change the mood of the country, which feels that the efforts are always required of the same people, than not be the people who not only cannot afford it, but also have seen runaway inflation in the past 3 years since COVID. There's mood music in France, which is it's the fault of capitalism, which is what the very sort of popular among the young left says. So it's a difficult situation. They always want to put the blame on somebody.
Yeah, and a final thought on this. So the Prime Minister, and it's funny, I mean, the British public rarely know the name of a French Prime Minister, but everyone knows the name of the French President. So the Prime Minister may go, and is likely to go, as you say, on the 8th of September, but that doesn't directly threaten, does it, the position of President Macron?
In theory, it doesn't. The constitution of a Fifth Republic is very clear. It was hand-tailored for Charles de Gaulle in 1958. And that's an entirely sort of different kettle of fish. The president still retains, even though he cannot take all different decisions on his own, he retains complete control on foreign policy and defense policy. However, he's possibly come close to the end of his tether, because the having again and again elections, we have two sets of elections. We might have another general election in 40 days' time. That's the time required. We certainly are having next March municipal elections in the 36,000 small and large towns that you have and cities that you have in France. All of this is an element of instability, with not much a feeling of what's going to come next. Last time there was something called a Republican front, in which the centre and the left allied to bar the road to the national rally, which didn't have a complete majority but certainly had a plurality, would have been elected very easily in Britain. That may be slightly different this time, because the hard left of Jean-Luc Mélenchon, which is our Corbynites, if you like, are certainly a very different, have shown a face that is eager in creating trouble both in the streets and in the National Assembly, that possibly parts of the left will not ally themselves with them.
Very interesting. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I'm joined in the studio by Kwasi Kwarteng and Baroness Diane Hayter. Kwasi, budget problems, familiar to all of us, you more than most, of course. I'm teasing, I'm sorry. But,
no, not at all. I'm happy to talk about it.
And yet, clearly the government's going to fall, and clearly it's a constitutional mess. And ironically, our politics is quite stable compared to France at the moment. But do you think it'll make much difference to the French stop the boats policy?
No, I don't.
Or was this deal not worth much anyway?
I don't think it will. As you say, the president will stay, probably.
Yeah.
He'll pick another faceless, anonymous prime minister. And I don't think, actually, in terms of policy, because this is a sort of foreign policy thing, actually, because it's Macron and Starmer.
Yeah.
I don't think it will change much in terms of the stop the boats policy.
Nor do I. Diane, any thoughts?
No, that's right. I think the French want this as well, because they don't like the fact that, as they see it, we make it easy for people to come here, and therefore people go through France.
Are they right?
Of course, because we don't have identity cards. We've argued that before.
No. They're not coming because we haven't got identity cards, or we do have identity cards. They're coming because they get 4-star hotels, pocket money, 3 meals a day, free dental care.
There's definitely a pull. You can't just wave away and pretend it's not.
Yeah.
There is a pull factor, obviously.
There is a pull factor, but the identity cards one is important, because that's the one the French keep saying to us, why don't you do something? Because we've done it that way. But the French don't want us to have a pull factor this way, because it means a whole lot of people are attracted to France. And that's not popular in France either.
No.
All I'm saying is I think they have a vested interest.
Yeah, no, if I had a house outside Dunkirk, this whole thing would be a nightmare.
All the way through France. They're not just suddenly arriving in Dunkirk.
So, yeah, but your initial question is the right one, but I don't think it'll change much.
No, not a way. But we're going to move on, because, this problem has been faced, of course, by many other countries in the European time zone, including Crete. Now, Crete have seen, in the first half of 2025, 7,500 people make their way across the Med, but Crete is now getting tough. And I'm joined by Eleni Zervoudaki, I hope I got that right, Deputy Mayor of Chania in Crete. So you've got really tough. You are now arresting illegal migrants and putting them in detention. How's that working for you? And are you facing challenges on this from the European Court of Human Rights?
Good evening. Thank you for your hospitality. I would like to say that things are changing the last 2 months here in Greece, because the minister that is responsible for asylum, for the immigrants, have changed the law. That means that people that are coming to our country, because, as you know, Greece is the entry to the Europe, will be considered prisoners. So all these people that are for example, are coming from Egypt or from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, that there is no war, they will be arrested for 3 months, and then they will be in jail.
OK, so I understand that, and you've done that, and you've made that very clear. But what do you do with these people? Do you then deport them? Do you just leave them in prison? What is the next step of this going to be?
The next step is that all these people, after 3 months, they will be back. They will be sent back to their countries. As I have heard right now, our minister of migrants, he has told that till now, at about 1,000 people has been sent back to their countries. All the others will not be allowed to apply for an asylum for 3 months. And after 3 months, they will check if their request is right or not, if they will be hosted here, if they will get an asylum card or not. Considering.
And does this, as a matter of interest, does this new policy have political support across the left-right spectrum?
Of course not. Of course not. For example, all the other parties in our government, in our council, are not in that position. They don't agree with that new law. So they are against. Although the government has the majority, so the law has been voted. For us, I can't say if this law, till now, 2 months now, has results. That means we are not sure if the immigrants will stop coming. I don't think that it will help, this law will help a lot. We have now, we don't have the the amount of immigrants that were used to come in July. In July, in Greece, as you have told or as I have written, we had more than 2,000 people. Now we have, of course, less, but the weather conditions are not so good because it's windy, and when the weather is so windy, we knew since years that people were not coming from Libya.
Yeah. Well, fascinating. The politics of this all over Europe, including your island as part of Greece. Really interesting. Thank you for joining us. Kwasi, this debate's happening everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's a European problem, arguably
caused by European policy.
Well, I mean, I think Angela Merkel, if we remember, had a lot to do with this when Syria blew up in 2015.
Complete madness.
And then Germany took in 1 million, I think, of the 3 million Syrian refugees. And really, since then, this has been an ongoing debate. And it seems to me that unless people take a different approach, which the Germans are trying to do, you're not really going to reverse this trend. The other thing that's happened, and it's a long time ago, but I've actually been to the country, and we've mentioned it a couple of times, Gaddafi, for all his faults, was somebody who actually stopped, and he said himself that once we got rid of him, and I'm not trying to condone what he did.
If you get rid of me, 5 million will cross the Mediterranean.
On this issue, you know, he spoke the truth, I'm afraid.
Yeah. What's really interesting about this, Diane, is we've got a whole series of different actions being taken. We've got Denmark now, a centre-left government, saying 0 asylum for now. We've just had enough. We've got the crime statistics. They're horrendous. We're not going to go on. Germany stopping people coming in, deporting people, flights going from Germany to Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, all the things I think we need to do. You know, clearly the Greek government taking tough action. Why is it everybody else can do this as members of the ECHR and for some reason we can't?
Well, I think that's just being used as an excuse. I think what we need to do is work across Europe. I think, you know, it is very important that we're all doing much the same thing. And the ECHR needs to change the way it interprets the basic rights. We need to go back to the original purpose of asylum.
Yeah.
Asylum was really for individuals who had a well-founded fear of persecution. And we must keep that. You know, Navalny was killed by Putin. Had he not been, I hope we would have given him asylum. You know, we did give asylum to other Russians, sadly, who were poisoned here. So we don't want to get rid of asylum altogether because there will be people who there's a bounty on their head. women judges in Afghanistan. We need to help them get out.
Okay.
So I think we have to keep the principles of helping those individuals who have fallen out with their government.
You see,
and that needs to be done across
It's interesting
Europe.
what you're saying, because you're echoing very much what Jack Straw said overnight. Jack Straw is one of the architects of the Human Rights Act and the incorporation of ECHR. And Jack Straw said, look, you know, it was the right thing to do, but we never thought for a moment it would be interpreted this way. This is now a big debate within the Labour Party, isn't it?
It is a big debate, but I think the debate within the Labour Party has shifted. And one of the issues has always been about the right to family life. I mean, you know, of course you need right to family life, but if you want to deport let's say, for the sake of argument, a man, then he could take his family with him. So I've never understood why the idea that because you want to deport one person, you can't take...
No,
But the problem
and the whole
we've
centre
had,
of gravity quasi shifted.
It's shifted, but the problem we've had, and we've discussed this you know, a number of times before, is that you're getting judges who are interpreting the law in a very, very small L liberal way. So essentially, people are saying, I need a right to a family life. I heard that someone was not deported because he was a good role model for his daughter. You hear these crazy stories. And that's not because of
and too many of them.
ECHR, or the law. That's because judges
have chosen to interpret.
That's exactly right.
The 1998 Act in the way that
That's exactly right.
And, but I'm fascinated by the way the rest of Europe's dealing with this.